desert fire, ignites in your deep desire. One glance she'll hook you in and unleash your deadly sin. She's a dark cloud in a sky of blue. She's a dark cloud hanging over. She's a dark cloud in a sky of blue. She's a dark cloud hanging over you.
Ladakh is one place where geology exposes itself like nowhere else. It's the best place to learn. Ignorant tourists can do a lot of damage, so don't be one. If we don't take any measures and manage these things, Leh will not become like Nainital or Mussoorie. Leh will become like Antarctica or Sahara. Leh will become like a deserted moonscape.
Well, that escalated quickly. But you have to take it seriously when it comes from Ladakh's most famous export, Mr. Phuntsuk Wangdu. I mean Sonam Wangchuk. But how did we get here? Ever since we were kids, we showed indications of becoming travelers. I practiced some 100 pull-ups a day. Sahil practiced riding miniature Royal Enfields, and Abhijit, who for some reason looked like Ranveer Singh from Bajirao Mastani, was ready for the Hemis festival. Fast forward 20 years, we considered ourselves to be fine documentary filmmakers. At least we thought so. And there was only one place we wanted to go: Ladakh. Yep, #Wanderlust. So we bought some tickets, packed our bags, tried on some sunglasses, sat behind a bald man, and met our driver Rigzin. Rigzin, taxi lao. Situated just below the Himalayas at 3,500 meters, Ladakh's capital Leh takes your breath away. Like, literally takes your breath away.
I have a really bad headache.
After acclimatizing to the altitude, we did the first thing everyone does in Leh. Went to Shanti Stupa, which is known for its spectacular panoramic view of the city. I was expecting to find some peace and solitude in the company of monks chanting in slow motion. We, however, found this. Quite spectacular, right? Also, monks monastery में होते हैं, stupas में नहीं.
अब सारे के सारे आ रहे हैं अलग-अलग बस.
काफ़ी सारी इनोवा है यहाँ पर. ऐसे लग रहा है सब लोगों ने ओला उबर मंगाई है.
We weren't expecting to find a mini Hauskas village in Leh, and that too in September towards the end of the tourist season. It was the same in other parts of the city. Wasn't this place supposed to be isolated? A simple Google search told us that from 500 tourists in 1974, when it was first opened for tourism, to 250,000 last year, Ladakh had seen an exponential rise in the number of visitors, specifically in the last decade. Why the last decade? Released in 2009, Three Idiots saw Aamir Khan playing a Ladakhi engineer. The climax was filmed in Ladakh and was one of the first films to showcase its extensive natural beauty.
2009 में जब आमिर खान साहब ने अपनी ये फिल्म थ्री इडियट्स बनाई तो अपने देशी टूरिस्ट का बिल्कुल सैलाब सा आ गया. लोगों को शायद पता चल गया कि हिंदुस्तान में कोई लद्दाख नाम की भी जगह है जो सयाहों के लिए बहुत खूबसूरत है.
Mr. Mehboob, the ex-tourism director of Ladakh, who oversaw this growth, explained that post the film, Ladakh went from an agro-based economy to one dependent on tourism.
यहाँ की इक़्तिसादियत इकोनॉमी एक तो हमें डिफेंस से होती है, आर्मी में लोग जाते हैं, काम करते हैं, ट्रांसपोर्टर का काम करते हैं, और दूसरी बात ज़राअत यानी एग्रीकल्चर से हमें होती थी। अब सबसे ज़्यादा यहाँ की इकोनॉमी हालत टूरिज़म ने बहुत अच्छी कर दी।
Tourism contributes to approximately 50% of the local GDP. The last decade brought with it thousands of jobs and around 2,000 crore in revenue. However, the man who inspired Amir Khan's character in Three Idiots was not happy.
Ladakh is a cold desert in the rain shadow of the Himalayas. That's why the monsoon clouds don't make it to this side, and therefore rainfall is very small, like 100 millimeters in most of the valleys. It is truly a cold desert where people survive only thanks to the glaciers that melt and give water. Nowhere else than in Ladakh you see the value of every drop. Right now what's happening is that 200,000 tourists descend on a 5 square kilometer city in 5 months. A city of 30,000 people gets 200,000 people. So this is what is a problem.
That's equivalent to 123 million tourists visiting Delhi every year. But Leh is nothing like Delhi. It has no native industries and virtually everything has to be trucked in from outside the region.
Ignorant tourists can do a lot of damage, so don't be one. If we don't take any measures and manage these things, Leh will not become like Nainital or Mussoorie. Leh will become like Antarctica or Sahara. Leh will become like a deserted moonscape.
And it's not just limited to Leh. Mr. Wangchuk suggested we visit Pangong Lake and Nubra Valley, the most visited tourist destinations in Ladakh, to understand the scale of this problem. And apparently, there's only one way to travel in Ladakh.
मेरे को तो नहीं लगता मैं हाईवे पे चला पाऊंगा।
हाँ तू चला भी मत, तू साइकिल चला।
अबे गाड़ी है तो गाड़ी में चलेंगे ना
यार। एनफील्ड लेके दूसरे गियर पे कौन चला?
रूट कितनी भारी है ये? इतनी भारी गाड़ी है, सिर्फ मट्टी है वहाँ पर।
After a 6-hour journey, we reached Nubra Valley. Situated 160 kilometers north of Leh, it felt like something straight out of the Arabian Nights. The secluded valley was home to some spectacular sand dunes and the majestic double-humped Bactrian camel. At least, that's what Wikipedia says. Their ears marked with numbers and a long line of people waiting to ride them, the camels didn't really look that majestic. So, I decided to cheer them up a bit.
अब आपने क्यों पकड़ा मेरे को? इसका नाम क्या है?
इसका नाम है ज़ेल्डप।
ज़ेल्डप।
ज़ेल्डप, हाँ।
ज़ेल्डप। सिट। डोंट सिट, सॉरी। इसको बुलाओ तो आता है क्या? नहीं, बस ऐसे ही नाम रखा है।
नाम बताएं।
सबका नाम रखा है?
सबका नाम रखा है।
याद है आपको? मगर सब एक जैसे लगते हैं।
Post my chat with the camels, we ran into this uncle, who was pretty eager to tell us why he was sitting on Zeldab.
What does coming to Ladakh mean to you?
You know, the vistas, the wide open spaces which we never see at home.
Yeah.
That is what it means actually. This is the real world.
Yeah.
This is what God was supposed to. This is what He meant to create actually.
You riding ज़ेल्डप?
Yeah, no, not that, but Ladakh.
ज़ेल्डप! No!
After another stomach-churning 6-hour journey, we reached the Pangong Lake. The lake is about 134 kilometers long and stretches between India and China. It's the highest saltwater lake in the world, and to put it simply, it's epic.
दिल क्या करे जब किसी को किसी से प्यार हो जाए.
But that's not why people come here. What made this lake really famous was Kareena Kapoor dressed as a bride riding a yellow scooter. So quite naturally, it was something everyone wanted to see, for Instagram. It was clear within the first 10 minutes that the lake was a pilgrimage every Three Idiots fan had to take. There were Three Idiot cafes, Three Idiot bums, and people dressed as Kareena Kapoor for pre-wedding shoots. And some excited naked men. Continuing with our streak of running into excited people, we met Tashi, who was pretty eager to tell us why he had parked a shining yellow scooter in front of India's most beautiful lake.
तो आपने स्कूटर क्यों लगाया?
स्कूटर तो थ्री इडियट का शूटिंग पॉइंट है, इसीलिए तो शूटिंग पॉइंट के लिए इधर रखा है ना.
तो यहाँ लोग आके क्या करते हैं स्कूटर?
यहाँ तो फोटो लेते हैं सर. जैन को इधर बैठ के वो हेलमेट होता है, वो हेलमेट लेके इधर फोटो लेते हैं. और लेडीज़ का तो कॉस्ट्यूम भी होता है. कॉस्ट्यूम ये वाला होता है, वो क्या बोलते हैं, ड्रेस होता है, मांग टिका होता है, और माला होता है, झुमका भी होता है, और हेलमेट रहता है.
लगभग कितने टूरिस्ट आते हैं यहाँ, पता है आपको?
दिन में तो कम से कम 200-300 गाड़ी आ जाते हैं.
200-300 गाड़ी
एक दिन में. पहले तो कुछ भी नहीं था, अभी शूटिंग के बाद पूरा फेमस हो गया. पहले तो 1-2 गाड़ी आते हैं, पहले तो कुछ भी नहीं आते. शूटिंग के बाद तो सब लद्दाख फेमस हो गया.
Ladakh was nothing like we had imagined. The stunning mountains, the deep blue sky, the crystal clear lakes. It was all there, but for how much longer? The sea of taxis and the mountains of garbage that was a result of this unregulated tourist boom was distressing. Although it was definitely helping the locals earn a living, there was a price to pay. We headed back to Leh with a deep sense of guilt. Everything we did as a tourist here was killing Ladakh. So to understand where exactly we were going wrong, we met Miss Sevang Dolma, a prominent environmentalist in the city.
We Ladakhis are, since time immemorial, we have been working with nature, not against it. Whereas tourists, they come for say 10 days or maximum 1 month. They want to access everything. They want to see all around Ladakh, and within that short time, I think they stop caring about the environment, what is good and bad for the environment. From that aspect, tourists, they tend to use mostly packaged food, but Ladakhis are not so much into packaged foods, and it has caused a real problem of garbage issue and garbage management. And on an average, especially during summer when we have lots and lots of tourists, we get some 30,000 water bottles used and dumped in Bomgar.
The lower oxygen levels at higher altitudes make you breathe in and out faster and more deeply, which means you lose more water through respiration than you would at sea level. That's why for the past week we had consumed at least 6 bottles of water every day. And since we were traveling a lot and didn't always have time to stop for a meal, we were eating a lot of junk food. What made it worse was that, like everything else, each bottle of water had to be imported in from as far as 1,000 kilometers away, which basically meant that the carbon footprint of anything we consumed here was double or triple of what it was in other hill stations. If that wasn't bad enough, a lower supply of oxygen ensures that the biodegradable waste decomposes slower than it usually would. And the recyclables that do get segregated have to again be trucked out of the region, resulting in more pollution.
I think this land was, lying barren, and since it's a little hidden from the, main city also, so people found it little, convenient to dump the waste in here, and they might not have anticipated that this will lead to this big problem, because it's all myopic planning and vision. Okay, they must have thought that let us dump in this particular area for this many years, then we will see. But nothing has come up so far to cater to the problem.
Last year we filmed at Delhi's largest landfill, the one at Ghazipur. And though this one doesn't stink as much as that one did, when you imagine Ladakh, you don't really imagine it having a landfill with piles of garbage, construction waste, medical waste, plastic bottles. 13,000 plastic bottles are dumped here every day. 6 तो हमारी हो जाती हैं.
The government should, put a certain sort of cap on the number of tourists visiting Ladakh in a year. Say only 70,000 tourists would be allowed to visit Ladakh, and that should be on a first come, first served basis.
But wouldn't that be discriminatory?
Nepal, like Ladakh, has been receiving and allowing tourists to come in any damn number. Whereas it's not the case with Bhutan. And Bhutan, they levy high, environmental fee from the tourists, and only quality tourists who really want to go and see and explore the nature in Bhutan would consider going there.
But with an economy now majorly dependent on tourism, that's easier said than done. Jor, our hotel owner, who had been in the hospitality business for 2 decades, had a different story to tell.
क्योंकि टूरिस्ट बढ़ रहा है तो लोगों को भी फ़ायदा हो रहा है. लोकलाइट जो है पैसा कमा रहे हैं. अनएम्प्लॉयड यूथ्स ने अपने टैक्सी हायर कर रखे हैं. लोगों ने बाइक्स का शॉप्स खोल रखे हैं. तो इस तरह से जॉब्स का भी क्रिएशन काफ़ी हो रहा है. जब हमारा गेस्ट हाउस था उस वक़्त हमारे 2 कमरे थे, तो मेरे मम्मी पापा ने स्टार्ट किया था. फिर हमने 2 से 3, 3 से 4, फिर उसके बाद अब मैंने टेक ओवर किया है. अब मैं 21 कमरे के साथ आ रहा हूँ. उसमें फैसिलिटी थोड़ा अलग होगा, थोड़ा सा हायर रेंज में होगा. हमारा डोमेस्टिक टूरिज्म में अभी क्या थोड़ा सा लग्जरी फैसिलिटीज़ ढूंढते हैं. तो इसके हिसाब से आपको तो मार्केट के हिसाब से चलना पड़ेगा. तो इसलिए सारा कुछ अपग्रेडेशन हो रहा है. मेरा अकेला नहीं है, बहुत सारे होटल अभी इस तरह से आ रहे हैं सर.
After listening to Sevang and Jor, we were in a dilemma. Should the Ladakhi people think about their livelihoods, or should they think 50 years down the line for a sustainable future? And a key to that future was solving Ladakh's age-old problem of water. At a height of 11,000 feet, Ladakh receives close to 100 mm of rainfall every year. That's almost 1/7 of how much Delhi receives. Ladakhis are mostly dependent on snowfall for all their water, and climate change is making matters worse.
So I've heard that Ladakh is the only place in India where you can visibly see the climate change happening.
Yes, temperatures are rising is the people's perception also, and not just that, it is backed by observations like fruits that didn't mature in places are now maturing. Insects that we didn't know, like mosquitoes, are now visible in places that didn't. And glaciers, more important than anything, that used to be like close to the village are now so far away you don't even get to see, and water therefore is decreasing.
To tackle this problem, Sonam Wangchuk came up with the concept of ice stupas. These artificial glaciers store water that goes unused in the winter, which can then be used in the spring. But the shortage of water is not the only consequence of global warming in Ladakh.
Glacial lakes, which are formed due to the warming and then burst out and damage villages and cities, is happening. As the earth warms and more monsoon clouds that were stopped by the Himalayas are now rising higher and making their way to Ladakh, and therefore there are big cloud bursts, and you may have heard of disasters like flash floods, and they are happening more frequently now.
The effects of climate change can be seen globally, from the rise in sea levels to an increase in droughts and wildfires. The lifestyles of us city dwellers is having an adverse impact on the lives of those who live at nature's frontiers. And in Ladakh, the unregulated tourism has fast-tracked this process.
Recent researches show that glaciers are melting away not just because of global warming, because of industrial cities in the plains, but equally or perhaps even more because of local pollution, because of cars, trucks, factories and even stoves, heaters, as they release smoke, not carbon dioxide but the black suspended particles that you see coming from trucks and buses and taxis, diesel, especially diesel vehicles. That black, but they fly away and settle on the glaciers and make the glaciers, the white glaciers, dark. And then they absorb the sun, dark surfaces, and melt the glaciers very fast. Now, tourism takes many taxis and diesel taxis, unfortunately, that releases all these suspended particles. And not just in the valley or city, tourists go over the high passes where the glaciers are. If you go to Pangong Lake, you go over Changla, just where it hurts most, you release all the smoke. You go to Nubra, over Khardong, where all the glaciers are, you release your smoke there. And that's the fastest way to make the glaciers melt. Tourists will go with an experience. Our travel agents will think we have made a lot of money, but they are forgetting they're paying with their very survival, their very existence. Because these glaciers will be gone. Leh is dependent on Khardong Glacier, which is being melted fast because of this traffic and the carbon that is settling on it. And in a decade or two, you will have no water coming from there. So it's the classic proverb of, cutting the branch that you are sitting on.
What was worse was that to cater to the water needs of the tourists, almost every hotel in Leh had a bore well. A tourist in Ladakh uses 75 liters of water a day. Compared to that, a local only uses 21 liters. We had been in Ladakh for a week now, which means we've used around 1,575 liters of water. This could last an average Ladakhi family for almost 3 weeks. As a result, each of the 800 odd hotels in Leh were drawing up to 5,000 liters of water a day, which doesn't seem ideal in a desert.
Tourists have a lot of, footprint, huge footprint of water. They come and do what they do anywhere else here. So in a desert, if you like a 15-minute shower, it's not going to work. Yeah? Unfortunately, we haven't attempted or we are unable to make Ladakh into a learning experience rather than just a playground.
When we came to Ladakh, we could never have imagined the damage we would be doing to its ecology. During the 2 weeks we were here, we traveled everywhere in diesel taxis, purchased a lot of packaged food, drank about 90 bottles of water, and I want to say we took a bath every day, but we all know that would be a lie. And even though we did contribute to the local economy, which may have helped some locals earn a living, in the long run, it might not help anyone. While banning tourists altogether seems unfair, what Ladakh needs are more sustainable solutions.
Firstly, diesel should be banned because it's known for its pollution of suspended particles. And then secondly, all combustion engines should be banned in a fragile place like Ladakh. Petrol, diesel, it should all be electric. We don't have oil in our earth, but we have more precious than that, 300 sunny days. So our energy comes in rays from the sun. So have solar charging stations every place and have electric taxis all over. Any number of tourists that go will not add one bit to these glaciers melting. So we have to manage. It's not to ban things, it's to manage things.
पहले तो जामा मस्जिद एरिया था, दिल्ली का हट ही. उसके बाद अब तो जामा मस्जिद एरिया रहने लायक नहीं हुआ. लोग गुड़गांव गए, लोग को हरियाणा बॉर्डर पे गए, लोग उधर नोएडा गए। तो इसी तरह अगर ले टाउन को भी डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन करके खारू, चमड़े, नियमों, बसगो तक लिया जाए तो आपको ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं आ सकती।
So a more permanent solution would be to develop an alternative city where not only the pressure gets released but also where everything is so well planned by greening it with new methods like ice stupas, artificial glaciers, that it is not only an example and model for mountain areas but for the world, that you can live with the comforts of modernity without sacrificing the planet for it.
मेरे पास अल्फाज नहीं है कि मैं अपने बचपन के दिनों को कैसे आपके सामने बयान करूं। आज की लाइफ और तब की लाइफ में तो ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क था। डिनर करने के बाद हम सीधे छत पे जाते थे, गर्मियों की बात। डिनर के बाद मेरे ख्याल में लद्दाखी फैमिली में आज कोई छत पे नहीं जाता होगा, ना ही उनके पास समय होगा छत पे जाने की। अगर छत पे जाके कोई लेटता है तो तारे आपको फिर भी नज़र नहीं आएंगे। तब तो आप बिल्कुल मिल्की वे देख सकते थे, तारे गिनते थे, तारों के अपने नाम है लद्दाखी में, तो हम उनके साथ खेला भी करते थे।